Sometimes I feel really confused by all those genre descriptions in electronic music, and maybe you feel the same way. Especially when it comes to the more popular styles of EDM such as house or techno. I am basically clueless most of the time what all those words mean. And I feel like I want to change it, which is why I want to make some videos about particular types of beats in a style, and this is going to be about house music, where I just explore the basic beat of this genre, in this case like a house beat, and want to see what do you have to add on top in order to make it some acid house beat, a deep house beat, or some bass house beat. Since I'm a drummer myself, I was exploring those beats with my electronic drum pad, which was incredibly fun, and I hope I can share a little the enthusiasm that I felt during playing those beats. But it doesn't really matter what you do exactly, so whether you're producing or maybe you don't create music by yourself at all and are just interested in those beats, you should gain some idea of how those particular beats are created. And also be known that I'm not a musicologist, so I won't dive too much into history. I want to make this some short and concise video where I focus on the musical parameters that can hopefully inspire you to bring in some of the house vibe into your own music. My name's Janis, by the way, and this being said, let's jump right into it. First, let's check out the classical house beat, and on musical terms it seems quite straightforward because you have a kick drum on all quarter notes, a clap on 2 and 4, and a 16th note hi-hat pattern that consists of two different sounds because there's a closed hi-hat sound and also some open hi-hat sound, and you have the closed hi-hat on all positions except from the third one of those 4 16th notes, and this way you get this kind of 8th note offbeat feel that in total sounds like this. When I tried playing this beat, I realized that I enjoy if the kick drum is programmed, because this way we get this kind of electronic steadiness that also defines electronic dance music. But I see a lot of potential in playing clap and hi-hats by yourself, because there's one thing called swing that really separates a groove that you only program inside a MIDI grid from something that you played with a more human touch. Just check out how I changed the phrasing of the hi-hat and the clap while the kick stays the same. Usually you can change the swing inside a DAW as well, so you have different types of groove feels and you can achieve cool results this way. But I feel like you should also try playing it by yourself, because you can easily do it. I mean, I did it with my drum pad, but you can also use like those little pads on those MIDI controllers. And also there's this function inside the DAW, which is called quantization, that you don't have to use with 100%. So you can just play something by yourself, and maybe it sounds a bit shaky, but you can try to see what happens when you quantize it, for example, with about 30%. And it might already be enough for making it precise enough while it still keeps your kind of groove. And I just really encourage you to play around with this. Another thing you can do for making your beats a little more lively or unique is adding some clap variations, because especially if you're drumming or finger drumming, it's something very organic, because you can maintain some right-left, or if you're left-handed, left-right pulse in 16th notes, where you basically move your fingers or hands whenever you play the clap. And on 2 and 4 you already saw me doing it, but here's a few more variations where I add some claps on other positions. And they are really efficient if you want to add some fills. So for example, you want some variation every 4 bars or every 8 bars. This is a great way of doing that. But also if you want some more active feel, you can also just have a beat that always has those types of variations, sounding a little more funky and active. So this is the basic house beat, and now it depends on what you put on top of it and what kind of tempo you choose in order to turn it into some more specific direction. And I want to give you some examples for that, but also keep in mind that it's going to be very generalizing. And also I want to always focus on the beat, so I'll not work with vocal samples or this type of stuff. For the classic 80s house sound, you need some minor chord sample that you play on different pitches, and you also play it in some syncopated rhythm, so it sounds like this. And you see that this sound is really defined by this sampled character, because you don't play a chord based on a tonality, so you have sometimes major chords, sometimes minor chords. It's always the same structure that kind of freely gets shifted around on different pitches. Another fun style is acid house, and acid was really influenced by one instrument, as I found out, which was the Roland TB303. Some kind of sequencer, bass sequencer, synthesizer that had a very particular resonant sound. So often those acid sequences play a lot with resonance, and so you look for sweet spots where sounds actually sound particularly ugly, but in some interesting way. And also with my Nordrum, I just used some basic sawtooth wave and used the EQ, because it doesn't really have the typical filter resonance, to boost it somewhere to make it sound a bit ugly. And so here's some example of some typical acid line. And tonally you can see that it's a very chromatic figure, so it doesn't sound like a major scale type of melody. Of course you can do that, but I saw many examples of exactly this, because I think with those chromatics you bring out this kind of ugly, distorted character even more. And it's a very centered element, so usually you don't have those acid lines where there's still like a vocal playing, maybe a sample, but it would be very difficult to fit other things that are really melodic into a beat like this, because those lines just take up so much space and have so many resonances that they can easily interfere with any type of other melodic information. Another subgenre that I really enjoyed playing was bass house, which, I mean, sounds a bit funny, so it sounds like, okay, house with more bass, but often at those examples that I listened to, I heard that there's like a sub-bass line kind of in between the kick drum. So I used just a simple sine wave on a very low pitch that I play in between the actual kicks, because if you play them at the same time, it's going to be very bass heavy, because the kick also has a good amount of bass. And inside your DAW, you probably have to use a lot of side chaining so they don't interfere, but it gives this overall rumbling feeling to the beat that is actually super fun to listen to and also to play. And often you also find some like lower pitched, darker synth line, distorted, that plays some syncopated rhythm. And here I just used again some standard, I think, sawtooth wave that I just distorted a lot, and that creates some more rhythmic movement together with this overall rumbliness. If you bring in some realistic percussion sounds, you're quickly in the territory of tribal house, which can sound very vivid because you have those lively elements of humanly played stuff. I mean, you can use sample loops or this stuff for achieving this, but if you play a little bit of drums or rhythm yourself, you can also create them yourself, and this way add some more of your human feeling to the music. And here's just some example of it. And here you can actually draw the line further and include any types of styles, especially like world music styles. And I came up with another little example here of something sounding a little more African through a little bass line that has like those thirds and the kind of marimba belly type pattern. And it sounds like this. What I also really like is when house goes more into the disco direction, and it's also connected to French house, for example, which is a little more abstract to describe because it's more about the sound aesthetics, because there are specific techniques of filtering that are used, and I can't really show this like on my little drum setup. So I want to give you some example of like a typical disco house beat, because here it's often used for bringing in the tonality again. So the bass line kind of suggests different chords and progressions, and the bass line also has lots of syncopated rhythms, but also I like if it stays a bit stable in the beginning. It's a typical disco feel, I feel, and also some tiny chromatic movements. So here's some example for that. And another element that emphasizes this groove is to bring in some guitar types things. So here I have something a little twangy, maybe you have some favorite guitar sample, can also be chords, that create some kind of counter rhythm that locks in with the bass line and the beat, and together it's like some very strong rhythm section that defines the groove. If we speed up the tempo, we're at the hard house territory, which was also some super interesting style to explore. So here we are at like 150, actually my example is 151. And just the beat itself and the speed sounds super energizing. I feel like it's the perfect soundtrack for cleaning your place or just working out at the gym. And some super specific element that I heard in almost any hard house track was some offbeat bass synth. So it's actually at the position where you play the open hi-hat. You just get some synth that is maybe like a little distorted or just a little chorused. And this one you just play at the same position. And to boost the energy even more, you can just find some lead sound. It can also be a little cranky. So here I have this kind of square wave sound with like a sample reduction going on. That is super fun for me. So I think this is also a style that harmonizes really well with acid elements or some FM things or distorted sounds on top for like melodies. And here's my little take. If you decrease the tempo, you're more in the territory of deep house, and still this is a genre that I find a bit difficult to define because the term has been around for a long time, even in the 80s, and it was described for something a little more jazzy, a little more mellow, also often with vocals. And I would still say this counts today, but then I checked some deep house playlist on Spotify and I felt like, okay, there's actually lots of stuff that is a little faster or a little more energetic. So in the end, I don't really know. What I figured out for me gives me this deep house feel is definitely like a slower tempo, like 117 BPM. And the sounds are also definitely more mellow. So you don't have like the clap on 2 and 4 all the time and the super driving feel. It's just a little more laid back. And also I liked to change the clap position. So to not have it on 2 and 4, but to have it on some position in between, like here. You might consider replacing the clap through a snap, so it sounds even more mellow, or you have like both. For example, here's the beat with one clap and one snap. What I also realized about many deep house examples is that it's based on tonality. So often there's a vocalist and it's actually with lyrics, so almost like some songwriting approach. Or if it's instrumental, it's still based on actual harmony. So you have like a bass line with, for example, 3 pitches and a melody on top that together give you some motion. And I just created like a little bass line like this. While on top there's some charismatic synth line happening, often with like a super cool analog synthesizer. Here I used my Nordstrom and I actually like this sound, but I could also use, for example, my Performer or do something that I just find really expressive and give space to it because the melody is really on the foreground in this style. And there are some other styles that are difficult to describe by musical terms because it's more about the arrangement or about the sound. So for example, there's like progressive house, which is often used for songs that have like quite a long build up or just many different layers that give you this ongoing feeling of something's happening, shifting and actually progressing. Or I mentioned French house, which is really about those filter effects and sample sounds. And also there's like tech house that brings in a little bit of the industrial character, but it might also have a little bit of this acid vibe. So in the end, it's probably not possible to perfectly define genres, and it's also boring and pointless because you just want to make music. But to just shed some light into those weird words, I hope this video could help you a little bit. You're warmly invited to share in the comments your thoughts on those genres, or if you want to correct me, just be warmly invited to do so. As you see, I'm really open towards exploring those styles and not doing this from like some expert type position. Also, consider giving this video a like, I'm always super happy about it, or subscribe to the channel. You see, I didn't speak much about like sound design, but on my channel you can find actually many videos about it, so you're warmly invited to check them out. Also, I have lots of online classes that might help you further with something where you felt like I didn't really elaborate on in this video. And also, I have some sound packs that I made for the Nordstrom, but also like sample packs or Ableton synths, so warm invitation to check that out as well. All the links are down below in the description. If you're interested in having the sounds I used for this project, I actually offer them for free. There's also a download link, but you're warmly invited to donate since it was quite some work to make this video. So just consider donating a little once you download it. And if you're interested in having the sounds for the Nordstrom, I'm actually about to make a little collection of those sounds, like a EDM pack with house sounds, techno sounds, breakbeat sounds, but I'll create those sounds while I create those videos. So just be a bit patient, and meanwhile you can check out those other packs I have. Apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create, and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye!